We are talking to the voice of the Oakland Athletics, Roxy Bernstein. Roxy, I want to get into a little NCAA basketball. Does the cancellation of the NCAA tournament discourage top high school prospects to go and play college ball?
I don't think necessarily. And look, we're only talking about a handful of potential prospects, right? It's not like we're talking about 20 to 30 people that could have this option. You're talking about a handful of people. It does affect the game, sure. And the talent, okay, maybe it takes a little bit of a hit. But look at, in the grand scheme of things, college basketball is going to survive. College basketball's got the fan base, it's got the television eyeballs, and the revenue streams, where all of a sudden, okay, if you're this prospect and you sign on to go play in the G League, you're going to places like Grand Rapids and Fargo and Rio Grande Valley, Santa Cruz, California. Is this where you really want to go with your basketball? And you're not going to be seen. It's not like, okay, people are going to flock to see the minor leagues in basketball. It's just not going to happen. Where you have the impact of college basketball will still have a significant impact and still be the great fan escape that we have. And come March Madness, the eyeballs, it's all still going to be there. It just, maybe there's a couple names that we're not going to see, but when you look at it, realistically, it's only a handful of guys that can make this decision. And we've seen some people go overseas, like, okay, LiAngelo Ball is done right now, or R.J. Hampton has done. But it's only, again, a handful of people that have that option, will have that cachet to be able to get the kind of paydays that the G League is talking about.
The other end of this March Madness cancellation has been the transfer portal has been very active, and now the transfer portal is instant impact. You don't have to sit for a year. Where do you stand on that change that the NCAA has made?
Well, we see it get bigger and bigger each year with a number of transfers, and it seems like there's like 3 or 4 guys at every school now. We're talking about is either transfers, potential transfers, grad transfers. If I was, let's say, the czar of college basketball, this is what I would do. And look, I'm not necessarily saying discourage kids from going. But if I was in charge, and the only people to me that should be given immediate eligibility, the grad transfer, I'm all for it, right? We're applauding the student athlete for taking care of business in the classroom. If they want to have that last year and go somewhere else to play after they already have that degree in hand, that could be that carrot at the end of the line to give them that opportunity. I'm all for it for them. That's fine. If a school, for example, fires their coach, or there is a coaching change for whatever reason, I'm all for giving them immediate eligibility if they want to leave a transfer to a different situation. But when it comes to just transferring the sake of transferring, or to find a better situation for me, or we've seen so many people use the excuse of the sick family member, and I'm not poking light at that, because there are real hardships that families are going through with some illnesses and some life-threatening illnesses, and I'm not trying to talk down upon those. But for me, I would make it that if you're transferring for whatever reason, you sit out a year unless there's a coaching change or you're a grad transfer, then I feel you can get some immediate eligibility.
What was your thoughts on The Last Dance, the Chicago Bulls story of the '98 championship team?
I found it fascinating last night. The first 2 hours, look, we all want to see it right now, right? We want 3 and 4. We want this thing to keep rolling out.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the stories we were familiar with, but just pulling back the curtain on it all, and some of the other stories that we weren't necessarily privy to were fascinating. You know, the dynamic and how much you didn't realize where that hatred stemmed from between Michael Jordan and management. And it went back all the way to early in his career, and he had to carry that grudge with him throughout his career, and this is what he dealt with on top of being the greatest player that we've ever seen. So it is pretty remarkable that the off-the-floor issues and what he had to deal with, on top of being laser-focused and trying to win. And it just, I think it brought back a lot of great memories, but at the same time, it opened up some new stories, and you could really shed light on the stories from the past and give them more context than we had.
Let's shift now to college football. There's been talk with athletic directors of expanding the college football playoff. We've heard 8 teams, 16 teams, 6 teams, 12 teams. We've heard a bunch of different things. Where do you stand on expanding? And if so, how many teams do you think would be best?
I think 8 would be good. I've always subscribed to the theory, guys, that you should give credence and you should honor the regular season champs from the power conferences. So you win the Power 5 conference, they should be rewarded. So, for example, the winner of the Pac-12, the winner of the Big 12, the SEC, the Big 10, the ACC, those conference winners get automatic bids of the 5 of the 8. And then the other 3 for at-larges, whether it's for a Notre Dame or a BYU, an independent, whether it's for a second-place team from a power conference, I'm all for that. So, but I've always really valued the conference championship, and I do feel that I've always felt comfortable with 8. I know the FCS does 16, but if you did an 8-team tournament with the 5 conference champions and 3 others at larges, I think that would be the scenario that I would really go for. Is just that's the one I've always subscribed to would be the best format for college football to proceed.
We are speaking to the great play-by-play man for the Oakland Athletics, Roxy Bernstein. Roxy, my last question. What are your thoughts with this virtual drafting with the NFL, and what player stands out right now coming from college that you think could be a game changer right out of the pack?
Well, let's start with the game changer. Chase Young appears to be the best player in this draft, right? The highest ceiling, the potential with him. And look, we all know the quarterback is the number 1 position and the most important position on the football field. But the way that the NFL game has evolved, that the pass rusher, the edge rusher, now appears to be the number 2 position of importance in the league. So here is an opportunity. I think he's the game changer. There's a lot of great wide receivers. When you look at this draft, I think it's a receiver-heavy draft. There's going to be some other great storylines as we head into Thursday and the weekend with the draft. And, for example, the one that's maybe the most intriguing to me is the Tua Tagovailoa situation. And where is he going to go? Because of the injuries and the teams can't examine him with their doctors, and they're just going to have to take the medical reports from other people. They can't work him out. There's no pro days. How is that going to affect Tagovailoa? And if I'm a team that I'm in a win-now mode, if I'm, let's say, a Matt Patricia in Detroit, or if I'm a GM who's on the hot seat, I might shy away from that just because you can't take the risk at this point. So maybe he falls a little bit. He's a guy to keep an eye on as far as how the draft proceeds and how things shake out. But as far as drafting remotely, it's going to be interesting to see what happens if there's an IT problem, an internet problem for, a GM of a team. How's that going to impact the draft? Will they pause and stop the draft because somebody can't get online? It's going to be really fascinating to watch this play out Thursday, just because of how things are going to shape up in this year's draft, where it's going to be so different than we're used to seeing.
You broadcast a lot of Pac-12 football. Who are some sleeper names that maybe aren't on anyone's horizon that you think could be really good players in the NFL and break through?
Well, I mean, certainly people are familiar with Justin Herbert, who's going to go very high in the draft.
Love him.
Austin Jackson, the offensive lineman at USC. There's some names, and then there's a couple of receivers that are really seem to be some hot names. Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State is one of them. And also Laviska Shenault from Colorado. A couple of names that are intriguing to me are when you look at Ashton Davis, the safety from Cal, with his speed and athleticism. I think it really will translate well to the NFL, and I think he's the guy to keep an eye on. Hunter Bryant, the tight end at Washington, to me is a fantastic pass receiving tight end, which really seems to be one of the positions that is sought after in the NFL these days. Those are two guys to me to keep an eye on when you look at how this draft is going to play out. You look at the defensive linemen from Utah, Lucky Fotu, Bradley Anai. They could be some popular names. Jalen Johnson, the corner from Utah, where the Utes have had a tremendous defense this year. Justin Blackman, who is the safety. So I think you're loaded with talent from the Pac-12, maybe not at the top of the draft in terms of, okay, yes, Herbert will go high, but I think there's some real depth and some real numbers from the Conference of Champions, as we call it, as the draft will unfold coming up on Thursday and into the weekend.
Roxy, why don't you tell the fans how they can find you on social media, my friend?
They can follow me on Twitter at Roxy Bernstein, all one word, RoxyBernstein. That's the best place to find me, and I don't know when they'll see me on TV in the near future or hear me on the radio, because we're all waiting for games to come back and that opportunity to head out to stadiums, arenas, and the ballparks, and hopefully at some point we get back there sooner than later, but most importantly, hopefully everybody stays safe and healthy out there.
Roxy, thank you for coming on with us.
You got it, guys. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.